Hi, this is Jack from the Fantasy Wildcard Devy podcast, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hotseat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. Today we got a brand new guest on, someone I've been looking to have on for a good couple of months now. We got Jack, of course, the new member of the brand new show over at the Fantasy Wildcard team, which I'm very pleased to be a part of. He is 1/3 of the amazing Fantasy Wildcard Devy show. Jack, brilliant to have you on the show at last. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, mate. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to delve into the world of podcasting, and it's been a real honor for Kev to invite us in and start this new Devy-focused wildcard show.
Yeah, absolutely. There've been 2 episodes brought out already. If you've not already listened to it, make sure you're going to check it out. It is just great. And I just think, as someone who this year I started watching, college football quite seriously instead of dipping in and out, I felt like I've just got such a head start on these rookies already. Like, I'm not having to go in and watch tape from ground zero. I'm not having to work things out as much as before. I think I've got a bit of a leg up on a lot of people already. You kind of must feel that, being an expert on Devy. You feel like you have a leg up for these rookie drafts coming up?
Absolutely. I mean, college football is really my avenue into the Devy world. So it was a love for college football and a natural progression of, this guy is actually quite good at football. So I'm probably gonna want to pick him in my rookie drafts. But yeah, delving deeper into the Devy world definitely opens you up to more of a world of scouting and looking for the traits that translate, or theoretically translate to the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we dive into this class and what it's all about, just want to say thank you for all of the return viewers and all the people who have subscribed already. And if you're a new viewer here, hey, little housekeeping, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff really helps a lot. And best thing about it, absolutely free. Doesn't cost you a penny. So why not help out? So, Jack, before we get into our mock draft, we're going to just talk about general things that you've noticed about this 2024 class. Like, where are some of the strengths you've seen? Are there some gaping holes other places? Or what kind of things do you notice in general about these rookies?
Yeah, the class feels really strong. That's the first observation. I think we talked a lot last year or 2 years ago, about how strong the 2023 class was going to be. And the 2024 class seems to have eclipsed what we expected from the 23 class. The depth at the wide receiver position in particular, the potential depth at quarterback for your rookie drafts is great. And at running back, probably missing the top end talent. Personally, as an Ohio State fan, I'm very excited that Trevion Henderson has returned to college. But for this class, it would have been great to have him come out and really see how the NFL valued him for rookies and for fantasy. But there is still a deep running back group that all have real high talent in different areas. And I've seen people talk about it as being slightly weaker running back class, but I think it's just deeper without the top end talent.
That's why I thought about the running backs as well. There's a lot of good running backs, and there's a lot of them as well. It doesn't, like last year, I felt like you had 1 or 2 or 3, and then it really it fell off a cliff, and you didn't really want to take any of these guys. Whereas this year, it seems like you could almost do a full second round of running backs, and you couldn't really argue too much about where you were taking them. So I think it's really interesting. Like, that sort of, we've got no A grade talent. We got a lot of B plus guys, and that's all you need sometimes in your dynasty teams, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and the NFL has shown us that running backs can have certain flaws but still be really productive for fantasy. Yeah. And we've seen people come out of kind of nowhere to be really fantasy relevant especially last year. So
Yeah.
the NFL, if it leans into that, teams are going to pick up rookies and start playing them because they're cheaper.
Yeah, one question I have for you about the Devy side of things is with these players, how far in advance do you see some of these players coming? Obviously, you have like your guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. He comes out of high school, you're like, oh, this guy's coming on. But of the first sort of 5 picks here, I mean, was Caleb Williams someone obviously after his freshman year? You seen him come? Was he someone out of high school that everyone was really excited about, like Drake May and all these quarterbacks, or does it sometimes just take them a while, even in college, to hype up to where they are?
I think the majority of the time, your top 5 picks in your rookie draft will be known to Devy players,
Yeah.
from their scouting profile. So when they're leaving high school and going into college, because the recruitment world is so fierce and profitable that Marvin Jr., Caleb Williams, they were players that were highly sought after and will have gone in your Devy first rounds. Someone like Drake May, on the other hand, was still a 4-star prospect, but did not have the kind of hype where there was an expectation he'd be going in the first round of the NFL draft, let alone the first round of the first few picks of the NFL draft.
Yeah. Oh, so it is. You get like a mixed, but I suppose it depends what school they go to as well. You can kind of see, like, you're an Ohio State fan, you can see those players coming a mile off right if they end up signing there. So, if it's a wide receiver scouted highly by Ohio State, they're probably going to be pretty good, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a running back that comes out of Georgia has a good chance of making it to the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So that's what's really interesting. I might sort of tip in some Devy questions now again for you, Jack, just to keep you on your toes as we go through our mock draft. But let's pull up the mock draft tool here. We have it ready for you. You got all the picks. We're going to go through one full round. We might sprinkle in talk about a couple of players you might expect to go in round 2, and then of course those great sleepers at the very end. So Jack, starting off with 1-1 in this Superflex mock draft. We're not going tight end premium, just Superflex. Who are you taking at the 1-1 and why?
At the 1-1, I'm going chalk, really, and going to select Caleb Williams, the quarterback out of USC. I think he is a quarterback that has been hyped up for quite a while under the tutelage of Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma and then at USC, if you know his journey through college. And he has all the traits and all the talent to be the first overall pick in the NFL and a superstar if things hit for him.
Yeah, he just looks like this really cool prospect. Some guy, like, you look at, he's someone that can make magic happen, which is obviously going to be really good for your dynasty teams. And someone that can come in, he's obviously going to be the first pick overall. He's going to be a day 1 starter. He's going to hopefully come in and have a real solid first year. Hopefully they don't try, like, wherever he ends up, don't try and like pump the brakes on him too much. I think he works best when he's allowed to work outside of that structure and kind of go out there and be creative. So I hope whatever team he goes to allows him to do that. I've got a bit of a dilemma on my hand. I'm in a 10-man Superflex league. So the value of quarterback is slightly diminished. And I've got the 1-1. And I'm thinking about going Marvin Harrison Jr. over Caleb Williams because of that. And I don't really know if that's the correct thing. The 10-man thing throws me, though. Jack, what do you think about that?
Oh, I play in a 10-man, and you're right. The quarterback value does dip, but only outside of those elite quarterbacks. And I really feel like Caleb Williams could be one of those elite quarterbacks. So don't get me wrong, I adore Marvin Harrison Jr. I've watched a lot of him as a Buckeye fan, and he is a generational wide receiver prospect. But it's tough to give up that positional value in a super flex. And Caleb Williams is someone who, as you say, he can make something out of nothing. His arm talent, his footwork, his like elasticity in his arm means he can make throws when lots of more traditional quarterbacks just can't make those angles work. And that's going to do you a lot of good in the fantasy realm when he is racking up yards and racking up touchdowns when other quarterbacks can't make those kind of throws.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. He's a special talent for sure. And you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. there. Is that who you're going with pick 2, or do you stick with a quarterback well in Superflex?
This is where I swerve from the positional value of a quarterback in a Superflex league. So I am going with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 102. And you can call me biased if you would like, but I know I'm not the only person to have gone this way in some mock drafts, and indeed in the NFL mock draft too.
Yeah.
So at 6'4", 205 pounds, and probably room to add a bit more muscle, Marvin Harrison has that size speed combination that you really, really love to see out of a wide receiver. And he is so athletic with his frame. He's got great reach and solid hands. He is a superstar in the making.
Yeah, he just seems like, even we look at these like star wide receivers we have now, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like all these guys, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, none of them went at 102 and were consensus 102. And they were great prospects. You maybe have to go back to someone like a Megatron whenever you're looking at drafts like this to see the last time a wide receiver went so consensusly high as Marvin Harrison here. You're an Ohio State fan. Does he do anything? But does he have any flaws? Is there anything we can say about Marvin Harrison Jr. that is a slight chink in the armor?
No, not in my opinion. I have heard there are some, if you look at their analytics and the statistics, there's maybe some room for improvement on his yards after the catch and how physical and maybe elusive he can be after he's brought that ball in. But from watching the tape, that tends to be because he's either catching the ball and taking it to the end zone, so there's not many more yards he can make there, or he's catching it on the boundary and he's double covered or triple covered. So I don't really have any worries about him adding yards after the catch in the NFL. But if you want to look at one area he could improve statistically, that's where you got to go.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe he could do, like, if you remember, going back old school, like Jack, but if you remember the original Jonah Lumu rugby, if you could play as Jonah Lumu and like run all the way to the try line and then kind of turn all the way back and run, like, and do a lap around the field with Jonah Lumu and just hand off everyone. Maybe that's what he should have been doing, just rack up some extra yards, right?
Absolutely. And then just pile through somebody like Jonah Lomu used to do.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So Marvin Harrison there, locked in at 2. We're going now. This has been a trend, sort of. I've noticed everyone's making like a nice little red-blue pattern sort of at the stage of the draft. Are you sticking with that? Are you going back to quarterback now at pick 3, or are you sticking with wide receiver?
I'm going to keep it symmetrical. I'm going to click a red spot for Jayden Daniels. Now, I'll caveat this with the top 2, Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison, I feel are in a tier for me personally, by themselves. And then there are 3 players coming next who I am perfectly happy with any 3 of these. So if I have the 105, I am delighted to not have to choose between these next 3 players. But if we have the 103, your team is probably needing a bit of help. And in this situation, let's go with the upside pick of Jayden Daniels, someone who, if he reaches his full potential, could be that upside is number 1 quarterback overall in fantasy, year by year. Obviously not every year, but that's his potential.
Yeah, the thing about Jayden Daniels that everybody keeps saying that is a knock on him, and I kind of really struggle to see why it's a knock, is everyone says, "Oh, he didn't produce until his last year," but he did. Like, he got there. He did produce. Like, I don't think what he did was a fluke. You don't win the Heisman by fluke. Like, he's not. I just don't see him turning into a pumpkin again, right? Like, he managed to get there. Is that from a Devy perspective? Do you see that often where, like, the players that do produce late do turn back into pumpkins when they go in the NFL? Or someone like Joe Burrow is a good example, right? That was the biggest knock on him. It's like, oh, he didn't produce till late. all he's done is produce since because finally the magic clicked for him. So do you see that often where players who do produce late go into the NFL and struggle, or is it more common, do you think, for players who produce late to just keep on producing?
I think from a Devy perspective, that can depend on where they're playing. So Jayden Daniels transferred to LSU in the SEC, which is the toughest conference to play in, with some of the best defenders going.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't see that as a real potential for Jayden Daniels. You could look at players who blossom in their last year, but it's because they are maybe a little bit older and they're playing weaker opposition. So Zach Wilson at BYU could be an example there, someone who really stormed onto the fantasy scene quite late because he played weaker opposition and he had some excellent tape and excellent statistics, but we've seen him struggle in the NFL and struggle to translate that. So it's not 100% certain that if you flourish late, you're going to still be a star in the NFL. But I don't think there's a rule that suggests, especially at quarterback, that one good year isn't enough.
Yeah, Daniel, just absolutely electric. Just some of the games, whenever I was like, I'd watch the games and I would look at the box score and I'd be like, that has to be a misprint. Be like pushing on 700 scrimming yards some games. You're like, how is that even possible? I've never seen a number that high. So he just torched players. And you're right, in the SEC, like real tough competition, I think he's going to do really well in the NFL. I actually, out of all the players in this draft, he's the one I want to see actually suit up the most. I want to see what he does the most. Are you just super excited to see him as well?
Absolutely. Really excited to see what he can do in the NFL. And I don't think I'm that concerned about where he goes either. Because now, as a spoiler, I am a Patriots fan. Ooh, I know. And before Jared Mayo taking over, then maybe the Patriots would have been the one situation that traditionally you don't want to see quarterbacks go to. You don't want to see top end wide receivers go to either. But I think even now, even at the Patriots, this could be a really exciting pick for Jayden Daniels. A really good, fresh opportunity to restart a franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really well put. He could completely restart a franchise and reset the way a team plays. So that'll be really good to see Jayden Daniels, no matter where he goes. So who's going right after Jayden Daniels then at pick 1-4?
At pick 1-4, I've selected Malik Neighbors out of LSU, another receiver who in any other year could have been the 102 pick himself. He could be the number one wide receiver in many other draft classes. Yeah. He is unfortunate to be in the same one as Marvin Harrison Jr., but there is not a guarantee that Harrison will go above Neighbors in the NFL draft itself.
Ooh, have you been hearing news about Neighbors potentially going ahead of Harrison?
The talk seems to be, now don't get me wrong, heavily Marvin Harrison Jr. as the favorite to be the first wide receiver off the board, but the love for Malik Neighbors is real high, really high, not just in the fantasy world, but in the NFL world. Now you've got to choose who you listen to and which articles you believe, but either way, Malik Neighbors has some elite traits that will make him a brilliant wide receiver one on, again, any team.
Yeah, he just looks like he's going to come in, he's going to slot in, and he's just going to be great right away. He just has that, when he has the ball in his hands, like, people are not going to like what's coming at them. They're going to be like, oh no, like, this is not going to be good for me. You can just see whoever he's lined up against. He's so good at making people miss. He's so quick. He can turn like on a dime. I've sort of said to a couple of people now, my actual prediction is he might not have the best combine in the world, because I'm not sure if it translates to off the field. I don't know why. It's kind of like an inkling that I have. And I kind of hope that he doesn't, because then I'm going to get a lot more shares of Malik Neighbors and he's going to drop a bit further. Well, that'll be good news for us, right?
That would be wishful thinking. I think even if he has a average top end combine, I think the NFL are already sold on him. The tape speaks for itself. His explosiveness, his speed, his body control, the way that he can decelerate and then and lose a defender is absolutely fantastic. He can stop on a dime and leave a defender still running in the opposite direction, and suddenly Malik Neighbours is open. And he received so many balls deep down the field last season, but not in a way that makes him a one-dimensional deep route only option. I think the speed he's got has given him that separation, and that's why he's getting the ball so far down the field. And you know, it helps that Jayden Daniels in a Heisman year was throwing him the ball, but Malik Neighbours certainly helped Daniels get that Heisman trophy.
Yeah, absolutely assisted him along the way. So I love that pick. Neighbours at 4. Who's following up at pick number 5? Are we keeping the pattern going, Jack?
We are keeping the pattern going. The last player in this tier of 3 that really are interchangeable, to be honest, is Drake May. 6'4", 230 pounds, prototypical quarterback size. He's got such a strong arm. You talk about quarterbacks who can break receivers' hands with throws. Drake May is that guy. So I think his receivers, wherever they may be, need their gloves on next year.
Yeah, and it would be nice for him to sort of have... I felt his receivers last year, there was obviously some issues with Tez Walker at the start of the year, and he had a nice link up with, I don't know if it was Mac Miller or McMullen or whoever it was there as well. That was quite a nice link up, but I think it would be awesome to see Drake May with a proper, like, elite receiver, because I think he could link up really well with them, almost like akin to... I know the Justin Herbert comparisons maybe a little bit lazy because they're the same size and they got big arms, but in the same way that we're still waiting for Justin Herbert to, like, link up with, like, a super elite receiver, like he's made Keenan Allen, who's... I suppose Keenan Allen's an elite receiver, but, you know, you want someone like a Marvin Harrison Jr., Justin Jefferson type of guy to link up with these guys, and it would just be like, pedal to the metal for them, right?
Absolutely. Can you imagine if the Vikings traded up and he does end up throwing to Justin Jefferson? What a dream. What a dream.
That would be the people would then, that would be a serious contention. He'd be right up there in that top tier with Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. Then he would have to be, right?
Absolutely. How can you... We say not to take landing spot too much into consideration, but when the draft capital is going to be so high, you kind of have to nitpick with a landing spot. And if he's got an elite weapon like that, that's gonna really make me question how much higher I can take him.
I never even thought about the Vikings trading up to get him, but I do like that now you've said it out loud. That seems like something that could happen too, right? So that's very exciting for Drake May. Get the Lions GM on the phone, or not the Lions GM, get the Vikings GM on the phone right away. Jared Goff would be very upset if the Lions GM called. He's just got his new deal, right? And so who are we on then right after Drake May at 1-6?
After Drake May, I feel like this player is in a tier of his own, and it's a receiver, Rome Odunze out of Washington.
Yeah.
And George, my co-host on the Devy podcast, would do me no favors if I didn't mention how elite Rome Odunze has been at Washington. What a fantastic final season he had there. But a really physical receiver who is strong as anything, wins contested catches almost every time you watch them on tape. And he has the length and the strength to secure that ball under pressure and win those physical battles.
So I did compile the list. I watched all the college games, compiled the list of who had a really good season, and put out some rankings just based plainly on last year, nothing else. And Rome Odunze came out ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. based on last year's performances. I know Marvin Harrison was nominated for the Heisman. I think Rome Odunze had a better season. You're probably going to disagree, Jack, but what do you think?
If I'm truly honest and shed my allegiance, I think I agree with you. I think Rome Odunze had an incredible season last year, and Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't need any excuses made for him. He still had a great season, but Rome Odunze put it all together. He has built year on year the physical attributes that you need to progress and become a better receiver, but also has added and therefore the statistics have come with it. He's caught more balls, he's got open more, he's racked up more yards and more touchdowns, and he's been a primary weapon in an offense that has grown alongside him.
Yeah, he's just had an absolutely amazing season. I just thought of a knock on Marvin Harrison Jr. That bow tie he wore to the house was absolutely shocking. Like, he needs to sharpen up on the dress sense. Maybe that's his only flaw. So hopefully he'll get a tailor whenever he arrives to the NFL. And that's one knock we can have on him. I have to have something on him. So Roma Dunze in there at 6. You're delighted if you got pick 6 and you're getting a guy like Roma Dunze. It shows you how good this class is for sure. So pick 6 is locked in. This is usually where the pattern comes to an end, Jack. Are you going to do the same thing here?
It's a tough one because it's not a tight end premium league.
No.
But Brock Bowers isn't a typical tight end.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the yellow is coming out and Brock Bowers is coming off at 107. He is part of this new generation of tight ends that the college game has had for quite a while, and the NFL is really embracing and has embraced over the last few years. And I think that allows Bowers to come in and produce almost straight away, which is something that 2 years ago we wouldn't have been saying at all.
No, it's this new wave of tight ends coming in that are able to come in and yeah, hit the ground. Wasn't looking like Sam Laporta, tight end 1 overall in his rookie year, which is like unheard of. And the groundwork was maybe led a couple of years before, like people like Evan Ingram, and it worked up to it a little bit, but now it seems like these guys are more ready than ever to finally hit the league running. And the question about Brock Bowers, if this was a tight end premium, let's say it's 1 point premium on tight ends, do you take him ahead of Roma Dunze? How far do you push him up, or does he stay here still?
I think it pushes him above a Dunze for me. In an extra, if you're getting an extra point for every reception that he makes, how many receptions difference is there going to be between the two? I think you're going to earn more points from a tight end premium over a Dunze.
Yeah, I'm thinking that as well for Bowers. But yeah, slam dunk prospect. Can't wait to see where he ends up as well. So moving on from Brock Bowers, on to pick number 8. Where are you going with pick 8?
Well, the rest of the first round could be entirely made up of wide receivers because this class is deep with a lot of players that are, borderline first round, late first round, early second round picks. So take your pick here. I've put Troy Franklin in at 108, someone who offers a slightly different skill set to the receivers we've spoken about already. He's much slighter. He's very, very speedy and has a really diverse release, which gets him his separation. So he is really fast, but he is also very clever with his speed and clever with his footwork off the line of scrimmage to get him some separation, which is going to get him open, and that's going to make him a quarterback's dream if he's got that separation straight away, especially if he goes somewhere with a rookie quarterback or a more inexperienced quarterback who's looking to get rid of the ball really quickly. He's going to be a dream for that kind of quarterback.
Do you know where I think Troy Franklin's going to go? I'm putting it out there into the world. I think Troy Franklin's going to be a Kansas City Chief. I can see it. I can see it. I don't know why. It just feels like the kind of player, the exact player that the Chiefs are missing. I even think they might trade up to go and get him if I'm really lucky.
I was going to say, I think you're clinging to straws if he's going to wait until the very last pick of the first round. But if he is, wheels up for Troy Franklin, pair him with Patrick Mahomes when you've already assessed him as a first round rookie talent. He's gonna jump. He's gonna jump up this draft board if that happens.
I just can't wait to see where he goes. I'm really intrigued. I would like to see. I think he even has potential in there to be used in different ways. Obviously, at Oregon, he was used mostly as that deep threat because Bo Nix was just so accurate last year and it just worked. And why fix it if it's not broken, right? But the way he plays and the separation he gets, I'm like, I think he could be used now and again as like a big slot guy as well. Like, I think he's more diverse than maybe he's getting credit for because he's not maybe being able to show it, but I think he's a good enough athlete to do these other things that we've maybe not seen him do so much at Oregon. Is that something you see as well?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think at Oregon, you had Toy Horton, or you still have Toy Horton, who has a very specific role. Bucky Irving as the running back, who then caught a lot of passes as well. I think they had a very structured offense, which was absolutely fantastic and probably will continue to be under Dan Lanning. But you're right. I think that limited what Troy Franklin, his opportunities to show what else he can do. And yet the lazy comp for him is someone like Devonta Smith, someone who is slight and speedy, but really aggressive catching the ball, really strong with it, and can lose defenders on any kind of route.
Yeah, I really like Troy Franklin. I think he's great value there at pick number 8, and the value just continues to this wide receiver class. Are you sticking with that wide receiver well at pick number 9, or do some of these quarterbacks start filtering in for you?
I'm going another wide receiver, sticking with the receivers. Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. I've taken here someone who, I guess we spoke earlier about players who produce in their final year, and then can they maintain that in the NFL, or is it an illusion? And I think wide receivers may be a more dangerous position for that than quarterback, as we focused on Jayden Daniels. But as a 6'4", 205-pound absolute speed demon, I think Brian Thomas has an NFL future and is well worth your 109 pick here. You're looking at someone who is a vertical threat and a potential yard after the catch monster. Like, if he gets that ball in his hands, he's huge and he's really fast, and he can manipulate the field and he run his angles really well. And he has explosive speed to exploit any like missed angles that defenders take on him.
Yeah, he's a really interesting prospect, right? And he was so dangerous in the end zone last year as well, which I'm not sure if he did, but he was right up there in leading college football for touchdown passes caught. I'm not sure if he was at the very top or not, but I'm sure he was, very close to the tippy top, if not at the very top.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. I don't know if he was the tip top number 1, but I mean, Jayden Daniels threw 40 touchdowns, which is absolutely insane. So, and he caught a lot of those. So,
yeah, he seems to have just everything in there. Why do you think someone like a Brian Thomas Jr., whenever you look at him and you look at Marvin Harrison Jr. and you stood them side by side, there's not that much difference whenever you look at them. So why is it, is it just that he didn't produce till the last year? Is that the only thing you think that's holding him back, or are there other little nuances that he's perhaps missing?
Yeah, I think Brian Thomas is slightly less well-rounded than Marvin Harrison Jr. So if you ask him to work a comeback route or work a curl route, he just doesn't have that explosiveness out of his change of direction in the same way that he does have it off the line. And as he burns past a cornerback, his speed is really strong, but his change of direction maybe, and is especially that explosiveness out of his step when he's changing direction, not quite there. And I would love to see him be a little bit more physical in those contested catches. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has that over Brian Thomas, but not something that he can't do. Again, he didn't get asked to do loads of that because he was so open.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite hard to be physical when you're fighting shadows, right? You can't really push anybody over. So I love it there for Brian Thomas Jr. in a pick number 9. We've got 3 picks left of the first round. So who's going to be your first of your 3 picks?
Yeah, this is where I am dipping into that quarterback well. And I'm projecting here a first round draft capital for one of maybe 3 different quarterbacks could go here. And my inkling, or who I would give a first round draft capital to, is Michael Penix Jr. So the left-handed pocket passer out of Washington, who again had a really strong final year in college, but actually has kind of, again, gradually got better and better throughout his college career, especially after transferring. He drives the ball with velocity. He has a beautiful deep ball, which he flashed at Indiana, and he just had too many injury problems. Injuries, and pretty horrible ones, to be honest. And that will be a concern to the NFL. And obviously he's an older prospect because of that. He's played his a senior season. Did he play super senior? He's 23 anyway.
Must be. Yeah.
He's 23, and so I that is the reason that he is borderline. Is he going to be first round draft capital because of the injuries and the age? But what he's produced and the stats he's put up warrant first round pick from my point of view.
Yeah, on the sneak preview, by the way, it's not come out yet, but I'll spoil a little bit of the show. On the Wildcard Dynasty show yesterday, we had the OG Fantasy, the OG great guy on. We're talking about Davante Adams, and I was just looking at where the Raiders were drafting. I was like, if Michael Penix Jr. could land at the Raiders and be throwing passes to Davante Adams, that's something I really think would work very nicely. I'm not sure. I think the Raiders may be slightly too high up to take him. I think they're picking around it's between 9 and 13, somewhere in that kind of range. Maybe a bit rich for Michael Penix, but boy, that would look good, right?
That would look good. I think the other problem with the Raiders is it too sensible a pick to take someone like Michael Penix?
They probably will take a punter.
You can't trust them. But yeah, if you could put him in a franchise that has a good O-line and one elite talent like Davante Adams or a few really strong wide receivers, he's just going to replicate what he had at Washington: a strong offensive line, one absolute superstar receiver, one high-end super receiver as well in Jalen McMillan. He's gonna be able to reproduce what he's been doing in college.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. So we got Michael Penix locked in. Then you got 2 picks left in the first round, Jack. Who are you going with your penultimate pick?
My penultimate pick is Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver out of Texas. Another super speedy, super slim guy, someone who is not going to win your contested catches and 50-50 balls, but he is someone who has incredible speed and really sharp footwork. You can go and look at his highlight tapes and watch him sort of start on the boundary, duck inside and turn on a dime and leave the defender for dead, catch a touchdown in the end zone. And countless times that I've seen that over his 3 years in college. And he's someone who really produced as a freshman. He really burst onto the scene straight away and got better, and then had maybe a quieter final year at school. But he has so much potential to be an NFL superstar.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because obviously we spoke earlier about people not producing until their final year and how much of a knock that is. I almost feel like for some reason that's more of a knock than someone like a Worthy whose best year was his freshman year and he sort of went like that since. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. Do you know why that seems to be the consensus thing that, but they produced as a freshman? But it's like, but they got worse. I'd rather they didn't produce as a freshman and got better.
Yeah, it's almost like a baseline assessment, isn't it? You want your freshmen to reach a certain level and then they can build on it. But Worthy didn't just reach that level, he smashed through it and had a great freshman season. Now, Texas went through quite a significant coaching changes in Worthy's time there, and they had some absolute superstar running backs like Bijan Robinson was there, Roschon Johnson. This year, Jonathan Brooks has been the star until he got injured, and they brought in an absolute raft of other wide receivers. So I'd like to give Worthy the benefit of the doubt that his final year in particular, there just wasn't enough targets to go around, and they were spread quite thinly.
Yeah, plus Quinn Ewers, of course, getting injured as well probably didn't help things for him either, because that was one thing looking at his overall stats is like, why aren't they throwing him, both him and Adonai Mitchell as well? So what is going on here? Why have they got less than 7 targets a game or what? Yeah, but they were right. They were just spread a little bit too thinly. Something that I think might be a running theme at Texas going into next year, looking at who they've brought in and the wide receivers they have, right?
Oh, so frustrating. I can't believe how many receivers they brought in. I spoke about that on the Devy podcast last week, and it makes my heart cry for the Jonte Cook shares that I've got.
Yeah. They'll be okay. They'll get to the NFL. Like, where are these going to be? Do you think he's going to be a sneaky first-round pick? Is he going to go in the first round, or does he drop to the second round?
I think he's an early second-round pick. But again, it's borderline, isn't it? A really strong combine could absolutely change that for him. And he's someone that has the physical traits to do really well at the combine. Speed, athleticism. He could do really well, and he could earn himself a couple of extra £1 million in dollars, sorry, into the first round.
Yeah, let's hope so anyway. Good for Worthy. And you got one more pick then of the first round. Who's the final pick in the first round for you?
Now, the final pick represents all running backs in this class. I love Braylon Allen, and some of that is tape, or most of that is tape, because he is not a complete running back, but I don't think any of the running backs have shown that they are complete in this class. They are all really strong in lots of areas. But Braylon Allen, I love watching this guy run, and he burst onto the scene. He came to college early, so he was 17 when he broke into the Wisconsin team, and like he took over that entire team, not just the running back room. He took over that offense as a superstar, and he is an absolutely physical bruiser. He's slightly taller than your stereotypical 3-down back. He's 6'2", but he's 245 pounds, and he is someone I do not want to stand in the way of.
Yeah, he's built like, the best way I can describe him if you've not seen him, he's built like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Like, he's just like, including like the back with the shell, like he's just giant. And I think he's still 19 years old. He'll be 20 by the time the season kicks off, I think. But he's not got a huge amount of tread in the tires there. He's got loads to work with. And he's someone that, he's still so young that there's so much more he can add. He might be, by the end of it all, if he ends up going somewhere, I keep thinking in my head, if the Ravens don't take like a Derrick Henry or something, just like Braylon Allen has got Ravens written all over him, right?
And what a dream that would be. Someone who could just slot in to a scheme that really suits his traits and lets him find the gap between the tackles and hit that space.
Yeah, and then it's going to be interesting because I love doing these drafts at this time of year because of how much things change. This time last year, Anthony Richardson was going around this time, and I would tell every guest, like, just wait till after the combine. It's like, there's zero chance he will be here. And I'm thinking maybe the same with Braylon Allen after the draft. I think he's going to be right up there with picks. Sort of, he'll be a couple of picks higher, I think, by the end of it. If he goes as the first running back off the board, if he lands somewhere good, people fall in love with running backs, Jack. And I can't see a world where we only see one running back going at 112 eventually. But I think at this current point in time, this is the correct way to do it. But people are going to fall in love with someone that might be Braylon Allen, like you said, right?
Yeah, and it does feel really wrong to only have one running back in this mock. But I think you're right. Allen could shoot up because some of the knocks against him are things that he hasn't shown, but it's because the Wisconsin offense just didn't ask him to do it. They don't ask him to run the outside. They don't ask him to catch passes. They don't ask him to pass protect because they're just giving him the ball and asking him to run through the tackles, which he can do. And he's done really well. But he has also displayed some really beautifully quick feet, and he has slipped through some gaps if you watch some of his tape, the gaps that he fits through, it's like a miracle that he has got through there. There is not enough space for a man of his size to get
especially
through
with his big
gap.
shell on his back, right?
Exactly. His pads genuinely look like that kind of shell. Now you've mentioned it. And he can fit through those gaps, and he has decent long speed to break a 50, 60-yard run down the field to the house.
Yeah, I think he's a really, really interesting prospect. So that finishes off the first round of the draft there, Jack. And a couple of people who I've heard mention going in the first round, we'll maybe chat about them for a little bit. So to pick out a couple of names, we got the two quarterbacks sitting right up there at the top of the board, Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy. Bo Nix, a name I haven't heard picked in the first round. Like more often than not, he seems to be a guy that is consensusly falling to the second round. I did say it a couple of times. He's the guy, I don't know why I picture him. He's the guy sitting in that green room not being drafted at the end of day one. I could see it.
Absolutely. I have to say, unfortunately, I'm on the same page. Unfortunately for Bo Nix, that is, I don't want him to have that Will Levis experience, and I guess he's not, because he's not being hyped up as a top 5, top 10 pick, which Will Levis was. I think Bo Nix has he obviously is a very talented quarterback, and he absolutely thrived in college in Dan Lanning's offense, and the numbers that he put up last season are, on par with Michael Penix and not quite Jayden Daniels, but there was a moment in time where Bo Nix was the front runner for the Heisman because of how well he was playing. So he's obviously a very talented quarterback. There's just a lot of question marks around why he flourished so late. So to contradict everything we've said about having a strong final year, Bo Nix is 23 as well, but he hasn't had the injuries, and he has played in an offense that really suited his skill set and didn't ask him to show too much. So I would love to be wrong on Bo Nix and for him to be a starter in this league, because the NFL has some quarterbacks playing right now or at the end of last season that just shouldn't be. And Bo Nix is really exciting. So if we can get an exciting quarterback and refine him, then I'm really excited for Bo Nix, but I don't see him getting first round draft capital. But yeah, sorry, JJ McCarthy, on the other hand, someone who's almost exactly the opposite, because he has just not had to show everything that the NFL that scouts want to see. In that Michigan offense under Jim Harbaugh, they've run the ball, and he has done his role excellently. Everything he was asked to do, he did so well this year and last season. And even before that, when he was coming in for trick plays, and he was the athletic alternative quarterback when he wasn't the first choice quarterback in that season, and he came in and did everything that he was asked to do. It's just, have we seen enough for a team to say, I'll spend my first round pick on him?
Yeah. With Bo Nix, for whatever reason, and again, don't really have an expert eye on it, but whenever I was watching it, I just couldn't help but think, it's like, this is a really, really good college quarterback. He seems to do stuff that I'm like, I'm not sure that would work in the NFL. Whereas guys like Penix, even for example, he's making these like money throws and things like that. His game seems to translate better. And that could be the system at Oregon, where it's like specifically designed to beat these teams in college. But for some reason, I just don't think Bo Nix's game will translate that well to the NFL. Is that a fair thing to say about Bo?
I think so. I think there's two sides to the coin. You could say, did Oregon fit their offense to Bo Nix's skills, and therefore that's why the offense is like that? Or has Bo Nix fitted into what Oregon wanted to do on offense? And then therefore, can you ask the question in the NFL, is a franchise willing to shape their offense around Bo Nix and what he has shown? Because when he is put in that situation, he has excelled, but that's a big gamble to base your whole offense around a quarterback that you're not certain is NFL ready.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. And let's go one more guy here who we've seen go in the first round. In fact, we'll just stick right here. Keon Coleman. He's a guy I've been sort of down on, I would say. So I'm sort of pleased to see you haven't picked him in the first round as well, Jack. So why did Coleman not quite make the cut for you?
Well, if you can find him for me, then maybe I can chat to him and ask him where he went in the second half of the season. That's a huge reason why he's not in my first round, because the argument for it is he is a physical, strong, athletic, long reach, good catch radius wide receiver. Everything, he ticks almost every box. But he did so for the first 5-6 games of last season at Florida State, which was a great transfer for him and a great partnership he struck up with Jordan Travis. But then he really did disappear, and he didn't get injured to our knowledge. And maybe we don't know everything. But yeah, it's the inconsistency really, and the lack of a full season. Wherever he's been, we've not had a full season of production from him, and that inconsistency isn't something that I would want to gamble a first round pick on over the players that have shown us it consistently.
Part of me wonders if he didn't make that viral catch, would we even be talking about him at all? Like, part of me wonders that a little bit. I think that helped his stock so much. And it really is an incredible catch, like just right up there. I think it was week 2 or something. And I think then people really latched on to Keon Coleman. And he just kind of flamed out a little bit, like you said, right?
Yeah, and Florida State were playing so well. There weren't as many eyes on Florida State until they were winning. And yeah, I don't know if we would be chatting about him. I mean, he was performing. He was in my college fantasy football team last year, and he was a superstar for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then burned me real bad in the week 7 and 8. And then he rode the bench. So
yeah. But he'll be there or thereabouts. Someone's going to take a chance on Keon Coleman. If he goes to the Chiefs, I'm flipping my tune real fast. Believe that, Jack. I'm going to be right on the Keon Coleman bandwagon. So just be prepared for that to happen. But yeah, he's somebody who's going to be a divisive player for sure. So there's a couple of players that you might see going round too. But Jack, I got to be honest, my favorite part of the show is talking about these sleeper players, these guys that you're thinking in round 3, 4, even 5, or some players you think they might not go drafted, but pick them up right after your draft is done. Do you have any names that really stand out to you from this class that you've seen, like maybe should be going higher, or guys that you like in the 3rd or 4th round?
Yeah, I've got 2 players that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and they are 3rd round, 4th round dart throws. But the first one is Malachi Corley. He's a wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. So he was a 2-star cornerback recruit when he left high school, and he turned that around into, obviously established himself as a wide receiver and as the primary wide receiver in a very pass-happy offense at Western Kentucky. They play in a Power 5 conference, so weaker opposition than, for example, Jayden Daniels was thrown against in the SEC. But he made himself an all-conference first-team player in 2022 and 2023. He's a shorter, chunkier wide receiver, so he's 5'10", 5'11", but he's about 215 pounds. And he is electric with the ball in his hands. He's someone who, once you've got it in his hands, he turns upfield immediately with a good burst. He's strong, he's physical, and he does really catch everything. His hands are his biggest skill set. And he was a college fantasy football gold mine. So he's already racked up a load of points for me in some leagues. And if he can be the dart throw that makes it onto a team and is a bit of a gadget player that you slot into your flex position, I want him. I want him everywhere. So I probably shouldn't be saying this in front of all of my league mates.
Yeah, exactly. No one take him off, Jack. He's called dibs on Malachi Corley, and I really like him as well. He's someone that I can come in and hopefully he's someone that can go in and win himself a role. I was really pleased to see he was invited to the Senior Bowl. So I like some of the stuff that he was doing there. Some of the clips I've seen of him, he looked quite impressive there. So he's someone, going in the 3rd round, I'm going to be picking up quite a bit of Malachi Corley as well. Lucky we're not in any leagues together yet, Jack. But if we do, I'll be fighting you for him. So who's the second guy that you've got then that you've really liked the look of?
Yeah, the second guy is a running back. Everybody needs some running backs to fill their bench and fill a few weeks. So it's Ray Davis, the running back out of Kentucky. He is a more prototypical running back size, 5'8", 220 pounds, but he is a real dual threat running back. He has some of the best hands for a running back that I have seen in college. There is one clip from the Senior Bowl practices where he leaps over a defender and drags it down one-handed. It was absolutely incredible. And part of me was gutted because this was my sleeper pick, and now everybody seems to know who he is, but only because that one catch. But as in his kind of more stereotypical role as a runner, he's really aggressive. He's got really good elusiveness for someone with such a big frame. He's definitely a bit between the tackles guy. He's not gonna run any stretch plays or anything like that. But he really can excel on those running back wide receiver routes that he's asked to run. If he's sent out on a wheel route, that's where he really excels. He's got really good tracking of the ball and as I say, really good hands, and he'll turn upfield really quickly.
He is absolutely brilliant. Like, I really like Red Davis, and I sort of went digging in and was like, why the hell are people not taking Red Davis higher? And then I see he's 24. So that was like, maybe is that the only, because to me, I couldn't really see too much else that was really wrong with him. But I think people get scared whenever they see that number like 24 right beside him. Is that something that throws you off? Or are you thinking, you know what, it's a running back, I'm only going to keep him for 2 years anyway?
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point. He is 24. I don't believe he's got too much tread on the tires though for a 24-year-old. Obviously, he's went through the COVID season and didn't play very much. He's played his super senior season, and which he needed if he was going to get draft capital. I think if he'd gone into the NFL draft last year, he'd have been a guaranteed undrafted free agent. So you can't really blame him. He can't do anything about his age. I don't think he's got too much tread on the tire. And at this point in a draft in the fourth round, I'd like somebody who I have seen on tape has got the ability to make a difference and could win a spot, like you said with Malachi Corley. He could win a role on a roster. Someone like Naheem Hines lived in my flex spot for a couple of seasons because he was just a third down back, whereas I think Ray Davis could be more than that.
Yep, I think he's a real solid pickup, and he's going to do a good job for an NFL team. And Jack, I can't let you go without asking about a couple of people. You mentioned one of them earlier. What is going to happen with Jordan Travis, who was mentioned for the Heisman Trophy before his really bad injury? I've seen some reports saying he might be an undrafted free agent after this draft, which I just find crazy to think about. What's going to happen to him? Is he even going to go in the fourth round of rookie drafts here?
Yeah, his injury was absolutely brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's someone who was on Devy radars quite early. He played, he was quite highly recruited and he played quite well in his first year, but then kind of went missing for a couple of years before this last season at Florida State. I think he is probably going to go undrafted in the NFL. I think that injury is just too brutal and too worrying and too recent. There's nothing on tape to show us that he is recovering or that he is back to even fitness. I mean, he's not back to fitness. He's not doing anything at the moment. And unfortunately, that means he's not going to get drafted. And I really struggle to see him winning a roster spot. I think he'll land on a practice squad somewhere, and that's really tough to elevate yourself as a quarterback from a practice squad to a full roster, let alone a starting space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just devastating news. He was someone that I like to look up a lot, and then that injury was just absolutely brutal to watch. But that's a pretty good movie in the working, right? If he makes his way back to a starting spot, I'd watch that movie. So I'm hoping the best for Jordan Travis for sure. And then I can't let you go without asking about this is my guy, right? I talked about I did all the write-ups about who was the best wide receiver. That Robo Dudze came on top. The one person that shocked me the most, and I double checked the numbers, my number one running back from last season was Cody Schrader from Missouri. I thought he had the best season of any running back that is eligible this year. Is that crazy for me to suggest, or was he really that good?
No, he really was that good. And again, in the SEC, in a really strong conference, he absolutely obliterated Missouri records. And I think the whole team really elevated. I think Missouri surprised a lot of people last season with how well they performed.
That three-headed monster with Cook and Luther Burden and Cody Schrader, right?
Yeah, and Cody Schrader feasted on on every opportunity he got. I think he struggled to really make a mark on college football, let alone fantasy football radars until last season. But he was so good, and it almost feels like you can only do a 1-year evaluation on him, because I feel like I need to forget everything that happened beforehand, because it's almost a completely different player. Like, if you told me that Cody Schrader had a serious injury and this was him coming back and restarting his career, I'd believe you, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I absolutely love what I've seen, and he's someone I'm going to be snapping up a lot of, because I just think he is older. He's got the same thing as Red Davis. I think he might even be older than Red Davis, just with everything that's happened with COVID. But I just want him on the team. I think he's good enough, like, to go in, and we've seen running backs that are, maybe have less tools than him, just get a chance and get an opportunity. And I think if he gets a chance, he just has enough grit and determination and, like, sort of that kind of cliche sort of dog in him to really run with it if he gets a go. So I'm really hoping Cody Schrader gets a good crack of it. So I'm glad that you agree as well, Jack. And that brings us to the end of the show. We've gone through a first round, we've sprinkled in some second round players, and of course we've talked about those all important sleeper picks too. Jack, thank you so much for coming on. Do you just want to remind everyone once again, where can they find your stuff online? What are you up to?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me first, and it's been a lot of fun. You can find me and the Fantasy Wildcard Devy guys at Fantasy Wildcard Devy on X. You can find me personally at JackCDCTT on X. You'll find a lot more on the Fantasy Wildcard Devy side, though.
Perfect. That is absolutely brilliant. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. If you've not already, remember hitting that like and that subscribe button as well. It really, really does help get these videos out there to a bigger audience. That is great. So thank you once again, Jack, for joining in. Thank you, everybody, once again for listening. And remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked right here on the Certified Inferno. And we'll see you next time.